Should you cut, bulk, or recomp? Trust me, this is one of the most common questions I get, and it's no surprise why. Picking the right path can feel overwhelming because it's not just a small decision, it's a defining one for your progress over the next 6, 12, or more months. Here's the harsh truth. One of the biggest reasons people fail to see the results they want in their physique is that they don't know where they're headed. They flip-flop between cutting, bulking, and trying to recomp, and they spend years stuck in the same spot. Without a clear strategy, you'll never get lean enough to reveal the muscle you work for, or big enough to look impressive in the first place. But don't worry, in this video I'm going to cut through all the confusion. By the end you'll know exactly where your starting point is, where you should go next, and how to commit to the right plan according to those things to finally start making real progress. Now before you decide whether to cut, bulk, or recomp, you first need to figure out where you stand as a lifter. Here's where most people go wrong. They think that their experience level is based on how long they've been working out in the gym, but it's not. Your experience is determined by how much muscle you've actually built so far. So let's break this down. If you've gained less than 20 pounds of muscle as a natural male lifter, or less than 10 pounds as a natural female lifter, you're a beginner. It doesn't matter if you've been in the gym for years. If you haven't been consistent, or you never trained or eaten properly, you're still at square one for the purposes of what to decide to do next. This also applies if you've been detrained for an extended period. You're essentially starting fresh. It's important to identify that you're at this level because it means you can build muscle very rapidly, which will go into what your strategy is going to be. Now, if you've gained your first 20 pounds of muscle as a male or 10 pounds or more as a female, you've entered the intermediate stage. So this is where things will slow down. You can still build muscle at a decent rate, but it takes a lot more effort, precision, and consistency compared to the beginner phase. And finally, if you've built more than 30 pounds of muscle as a male or more than 15 pounds as a female, you've likely surpassed the intermediate stage, and at this point you're already looking pretty solid, and this video probably isn't for you. So the takeaway is, if you don't have much muscle to show for all of your time in the gym, regardless of how many years that may be, you're a beginner, and understanding where you fall in the spectrum is the first step to setting the right goal for your next phase. Now that you know your experience level, the next step is to assess your starting point as far as body fat percentage goes. This, combined with the previous point, is now going to dictate whether you should cut, bulk, or recomp over the next 6 to 12 months. So I'm going to break this down for very specific recommendations on which one you should do. Keep in mind, I'm going to be sticking to body fat percentages mostly just for men, so women, just add 10% to these numbers. Oh, and by the way, if you need help gauging your body fat percentage, you can check out my previous video discussing exactly how to do that. Now, if you're under 12% body fat, here's what you should do. For beginners under 12%, a full-blown lean bulk is ideal. Use a 10 to 20% calorie surplus and aim to gain somewhere between 1 and 1.5% of your total body weight every month. This ensures steady muscle growth without excessive fat gain. Stick with this for at least 6 months before you reassess. Now, if you're closer to an intermediate at this body fat level, lean bulk but with a smaller surplus, around 5 to 10%, and aim to gain only about 0.5 to 1% of your total body weight every month. Do this for 6 to 12 months to keep fat gain at a minimum while still prioritizing pretty rapid muscle growth. Now, if you're between 12 and 18% body fat, again, women, that means between 22 and 28% body fat, the strategy depends on your goals and experience. For beginners in this range, recomping is the sweet spot. If you're closer to the higher end of the range, use a slight deficit of about 5 to 10%. If you're leaner, stay at maintenance or use a very small surplus. We're talking somewhere around 5%, and aim to gain about 0.5% of your body weight monthly, because recomping means you're building muscle and losing fat at the same time. And if you want to know how to do exactly that more in depth, you can check out my video on that. This approach should work for 3 to 6 months pretty well before you reassess. For intermediates at this range of body fat, it's a little more nuanced. If you've never been truly lean before, consider cutting down to sub 12% body fat for men or sub 22% for women. This is going to create a baseline so you can actually compare and see what results you've built over the coming years when you cut back down to this. And it's also going to allow you to reverse into a lean bulk from there very successfully. However, if you're already diet fatigued from a prior cut, or you just came off of a bulk that went a little bit too far, by all means take a 4 to 8 week diet break at maintenance. Use this time to recover, reset, and decide whether you're going to recomp or cut further afterwards. Now, if you're over 18% body fat as a male or 28% as a female, there's no question, cut. At this point, bulking or even recomping anywhere near surplus is a mistake. Stick to a 10 to 20% deficit and cut down to around that 10 to 12% body fat as a man specifically. From there, reverse into a lean bulk and stay disciplined to avoid climbing back into higher body fat territory. Even with these guidelines I've just laid out, people still tend to overthink their situation. Let me tackle some of the most common questions I hear surrounding these little nuanced areas. The first one is people telling me, I've been cutting forever, but I'm still skinny and soft with love handles. What now? now? Well, if you're stuck in this situation, the problem isn't your cut, it's your body composition. You haven't built enough muscle to look defined, even at a lower body weight. Continuing to cut right now isn't going to help. Instead, go to maintenance for 3 to 6 months, prioritize high-quality strength training, and focus on building more muscle because you'll probably lose some fat in that process if you do it all correctly. The next one I get is, I've been through multiple cuts and bulks, but I still don't look impressive. What gives? Well, if you're still a beginner, the issue is simple. You haven't built enough muscle yet. In fact, that's usually the biggest problem when it comes to not having an impressive physique. If you're relatively lean, lean bulk or recomp for the next 3 to 6 months with minimal fat gain. If you're still holding too much fat, recomp with a slight deficit, again 5 to 10% below maintenance, and focus on improving your overall composition during this. Another common question I get is, well, I'm pretty lean, but I'm still not quite happy with my physique. Should I bulk? Absolutely. Lean bulking is essential for building muscle and transforming your body over the coming years. Remember, you're not going to see dramatic results overnight. It takes at least 3 years of consistent effort without major setbacks like injuries or extended breaks to build a physique you're truly proud of and believe or think is impressive. So the bottom line here is stop overanalyzing. Choose a path based on where you are right now, commit to it for at least the next 3 to 6 months, and trust the process. The worst thing you can do is stay wishy-washy, constantly second-guessing your decision. Progress comes from consistency, not perfection. Now, regardless of whether you're cutting, bulking, or recomping, certain principles remain non-negotiable. Without these, no phase is going to deliver the results you're after. First is training. You must train with the intent to build muscle. This means prioritizing progressive overload, proper intensity, and executing each lift with solid form. Skipping these fundamentals is going to hold back your progress, no matter how well you manage your diet. Again, if you've been cutting aggressively, bulking aggressively, but you're not building the muscle during that process to show for it, you're going to feel like you're spinning your wheels. But on that next point is the nutrition. Consistency is king here. You need to hit your calorie and protein targets daily. Focus on quality food choices, eliminate erratic eating habits. Consistency over weeks and months, not just a few days here and there, is what produces results as far as sticking to that cut, bulk, that deficit, surplus for long periods of time, stringing days together where you're achieving those targets. Sleep is another crucial factor. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of high-quality sleep every night. Poor sleep undermines recovery, hormone regulation, and overall performance, which will directly impact your ability to build or retain muscle and lose fat effectively. Hydration is often overlooked, but equally important. Staying well hydrated improves performance, recovery, and even hunger management. It's a simple habit that has massive benefits, so make it a priority. And lastly, tracking your progress is essential. Whether it's tracking your lifts, logging your calories, or tracking your progress photos every month, as well as tracking your body weight every single day to get weekly trends. Having data allows you to make informed adjustments and stay on course. Without tracking, you're essentially guessing, and guessing rarely leads to great results. A priority. And lastly, tracking your progress is essential. Whether it's tracking your lifts, logging your calories, or tracking your diet, you can instantly optimize it all with my help as well. Joining the Modern Physique Hub, linked down below. Now, even with the best plan in place, certain mistakes can derail your progress. Let's address the most common ones so you can avoid them. First, cutting too aggressively. Extreme deficits might seem like a shortcut, but they lead to muscle loss, burnout, poor performance in the gym, and ultimately not building the habit appropriately of being able to get lean and stay lean while preserving or building muscle in the process, which is very important. Stick to a manageable 10 to 20% deficit to preserve your hard-earned muscle while losing fat, aiming for between 0.5 and 1% of your total body weight loss every week. Next is bulking without a plan. I often say how a lean bulk done properly is way harder than a cut phase is. It is way harder and takes way more discipline than cutting does. Dirty bulking is the result of not doing that, and it often results in unnecessary fat gain, leaving you with months of cutting to fix the damage. Instead, lean bulk with a controlled calorie surplus and track your progress carefully. Trying to recomp without nailing the basics is another common mistake. So if your training intensity isn't high enough, your protein intake isn't consistent, recomping will feel like spinning your wheels. So get the fundamentals in check first. And again, go check out the video on recompositioning in depth to understand how to do it better. Switching goals too often is a major progress killer. Constantly jumping between cutting, bulking, and recomping every few weeks prevents you from making meaningful progress in any direction. So commit to one phase and do not waver from it for the next 3 to 6 months before you reassess. Lastly, avoid falling into analysis paralysis, which is essentially the theme of this video at this point. Too many people waste time trying to find the perfect strategy, but perfection doesn't exist. Pick a direction, execute it well, and adjust as needed. The biggest mistake you can make is doing nothing out of fear of making the wrong choice. So cutting, bulking, or recomping isn't about finding that perfect solution. It's about taking consistent action and staying committed to the process. Building an impressive physique takes time, discipline, and the ability to adapt when needed, and ultimately it's probably going to take 3 or more of these cycles done well over time before you get to a level you feel is truly impressive and somewhat satisfactory. Stop overthinking and start moving forward, and I hope this video will help you do just that. Remember, your best physique is built one phase at a time, so pick the goal, execute it with purpose, and trust that the work you're putting in will pay off. And for those of you who have now decided on your next 6 to 12 month strategy, I'll see you at the top.